Put my waistcoat on, my vest.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Take Back My Brain. Today, I have with me a very special guest, Dr. Tony O'Donnell, and he's just very dear to my heart. We got to meet him when we were down in Mexico getting our teeth fixed. My husband was getting his amalgams removed. I was getting some cavitation surgery, and Dr. Tony was down there at the same time. We got our IVs together. And I just find him to be just an incredibly remarkable doctor and innovator. And he's an author of 15 books. So he's just a wealth of information to the nutrition space and just life in general. So Dr. Tony, welcome to the Take Back My Brain podcast. I'm so glad that you agreed to be interviewed today. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. It's been a while. You and I have been trying to do this for the longest time.
Long time, yes.
Schedule, I was traveling last week. I was doing television all over Texas, and I literally El Paso, San Diego, Palm Springs, San Antonio, Austin, Houston. So I finally just got back, and a lot of stuff going on. And I'm so delighted to share a moment with you. Thank you. It's great to see you, Laurie. Love to your family.
Yes, thank you. And they love you as well. Told me to tell you hi. So that's great.
And our teeth look really good because we go down.
They do. Because we go down there into
really
Tijuana.
Important. So
yes.
You talk about taking back your brain and taking back your health. You want to take back your health of your teeth because that's linked to all the meridians in your heart. So it's very important that you clean your teeth, have checkups, and make sure that you take oral health is crucial for actually helping your immunity stay strong and stable.
Absolutely. Because if your mouth is sick, your body is sick.
You've got that. A lot of bacteria for sure in your mouth. People just forget about that. And dental cavities and bleeding and mouth ulcers and gum disease is very prevalent in today's society. And if you don't clean your teeth properly, you don't get these checkups, it can really, really affect your health, particularly your heart muscle.
Yeah. And I was actually just doing another interview with Dr. Nathan O'Brien. Do you know him?
Yes, he's a wonderful guy. Yeah.
Isn't he wonderful? He was talking about people just using Listerine and how that causes, obviously damage to your microbiome in your mouth, but that also leads to heart disease. So the more Listerine you use, fluoride, those types of things, the greater you are at risk for decreasing your nitric oxide and then obviously for having heart disease.
Nathan and I have been friends for years, and he's just the pioneer in this beet-based L-arginine, ejection fraction, heart muscle sustainability. And of course, when you take Listerine, it has glycerin in it, and of course that's sugar. And when you put all the stuff into your body, it causes a cascade where bacteria loves to live. So you want to make sure that you really clean your mouth with some really good stuff. We'll talk about that later on in the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to know, how did you get to where you are now? I mean, you're from Ireland, and I know you had a really large family and you had your own challenges, but here you are. I mean, you're traveling all over. Your life is incredible. Like, you wrote 15 books. Like, how did you go from, poverty in Ireland to where you are now?
I didn't know I was broke in Ireland. I didn't know I was in poverty, but I really was. My parents were magnificent. I was never hungry. I was certainly poor, as distinct from where I am today. And my parents never would like me to boast, so I'm never going to boast about that. But I had an innate desire as a young man to become more. I wanted more. My parents were magnificent. They provided for us a family of 11 and double sets of twins. And I was a sickly child, Laurie. I was always at the doctor on a continuous basis, and I was always seeking. And scripture says, whatever you are seeking is also seeking you. So I was seeking answers to my health, and I couldn't really find it. And then I met some people who were into holistic homeopathic remedies and natural remedies, foreign to most people still today, because we are traditionally trained to have a doctor with a white jacket, stethoscope, and his name on it, and that's the person that treats the family. And sometimes we would have traveling doctors come to our home. That day is pretty much gone unless you're in remote parts of the world. It still happens sometimes. A medicine man or woman will come to your house or have a ceremony of some kind to heal you or detox you or get your mindset, and so you can ward off some of the ailments that take over our body and can be very challenging. So I was a very sickly young man, and I was seeking answers to my health. I wanted more for my life. I didn't like being in poverty. I didn't like being challenged financially, emotionally, physically. I was spiritually very strong from our faith because our parents would always have us go to church. I had that base, and I'm so thankful for my amazing parents who are no longer with us. And I think, Laurie, this is a day that we really truly reflect on who we are as human beings. And because Shakespeare says, who you are speaks so loudly, I care not thou what thou sayest. And with what's happening in our world, we need to come together as human beings and show our true humanity, not the ugly side of who we are
Right.
as human beings. We are mistreating ourselves. I have 3 dogs, and I see how loving they are to each other. I see my little tiny little Sadie dog, and I've got my big German Shepherd just outside the door here. And I see the little tiny dog licking the other dog's ears to give them love. And it's
Yeah.
so beautiful and so affectionate. And I thought, wow, I see all this love from this tiny little dog to this giant big dog. And perhaps that little dog of ours, he sees his father or potentially his mother in this other big dog. And they are just loving each other. And one is black and one is tan. So there are dissimilarities, but we as human beings must really reflect on each other and reflect on how beautiful life truly is. And there was a wonderful story and photograph in a newspaper, and it's one of the most remarkable photographs. I've seen a lot of remarkable photographs that tell so many stories. This was a remarkable one for me because we had a house fire in Ireland. My wonderful brother, who's a twin, I have a brother and sister who are twins. He had left a gallon of oil that my father would use to wash paint off his hands. That's traditional, how they wash the paint off their hands. He left it on top of our stove at our home in Ireland, the family home. And I woke up amidst a huge fire that engulfed the entire house.
Wow.
I was really, really sick for a long time. And I thought, wow, I'm so thankful. I'm so grateful that I'm alive. And that correlates with a story and a photograph that I saw. I saw a goat, I saw a fox, I saw a coyote, and I saw a horse, and there was one other animal in the picture, all cowered under a tree when we had the fires out here in California. We've had several fires, as you know, over the years that were devastating to the state, cost billions of dollars. These animals ordinarily, or certainly the coyote and the fox and the goat, might be adversarial to one another, but they all cowered together, all under a tree, seeking refuge, seeking comfort, seeking security. And I thought, wow, that's really remarkable. So with all the stuff that's going on in our world and the beautiful people of Israel and the Palestinians and the Lebanese, the Israelis, we all must come together and find commonality, find the love in everything you do, and there you will find your happiness. And I think this is appropriate that we discuss this because we can't just brush it off. We really need to come together and pray and be thankful for the gifts. I'm so thankful for you and all the work you do. I'm thankful to America for the gifts it has given me. I'm thankful for this life that God gives me every single day. I'm thankful for the people that purchase my products and buy my books. I'm thankful for the opportunities, but it wasn't always like this. So I've been developing my faith for a long time. And scripture says, to them that hath shall more be given, to them that hath not shall be taken away. I've given you every seed-bearing herb there is. Do not look to the skies for the answers. To your health, look under your own 2 feet, and be careful how you chew the humble grass, for it does not have teeth like the beast. And they were talking about green superfoods. They were talking about ding-dongs and donuts, and big gulps and french fries, and pizza, and Pepsi, and Prozac. I was so sick, Laurie, as a child. I just thought, I don't know if I'm ever going to make it, because I lost my father, my mother, my brother, my uncle, my cousin, my fiance, all to heart disease and cancer. I had so much sickness, and I thought, there's got to be a better way. And that's when I decided to turn my life over and give thanks to God and give thanks to all the people who've been helping me along the way and writing those books and doing morning news shows and television and creating all these magnificent superfoods. That's what's led us up to where we are right now.
Right. And it's so key what you're talking about, just gratitude. And our good friend Ben Azadi, he's always talking about vitamin G. And if you don't have vitamin G, you can't get well, right?
Yeah, you got to have gratitude.
You have to have gratitude.
Yeah. And all the people that reached out to me and helped me. I was a writer in Ireland. I wrote for Rock and Roll magazine. I wrote a small little column, and I was a top 40 disc jockey on the radio in Ireland. And
you've done it all, Dr. Tony.
I've been around. I can't tell you how old. My grandma says I'm so old. My social security number is 4. So I've been around for sure. And, it's really important that you live life to the fullest, as my great friend Les Brown says. We got to do a lot of different things. And in Europe, we tend to do that. We fill our life with lots of different things: walking, exercising, volunteering, helping out at your local church, helping your neighbor, doing things, looking in on people who are older and things of that nature, and really educating yourself, because Ireland is steeped in scholastic studies. And I really like that about our country. We always encourage, the professors I had at college were magnificent. They're always encouraging us to get our education, make sure you speak a language or more, make sure that you show up in the world. And I think that's what I've tried to do. And I'm a student for life. I'm always studying. I went back to college and took a PhD, a doctorate in clinical psychology, a PhD in addiction. I've written, all those books that you mentioned, those 15 plus books, a new one coming out called Mindful Leadership. And so I'm always bettering myself, because when you sit still, as the late Prime Minister of England, Margaret Thatcher, said, someone eventually will come along and run you over. So you want to make sure you're prepared for the world in which we live in, which is very different from you when you and I were born. It was very different for me back home.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to get back to living slower, right? Because when I was younger, when you were younger, things were definitely slower. I grew up in a very small town, and we just didn't have all these activities. We didn't have all these things pulling us in all directions. Kids met at the park and we all played, and then we went home for dinner, and then we came back, and then we went home, and everybody knew everybody else's parents, and we all just sort of lived life together. And it's so different now. It's really hard to make those connections, and it's hard when you don't have connections with people. Then we seek it in other ways. So whether it's an addiction, or we start disconnecting with so many other things like our health. And
that's right, Laurie. And there's a study that came out recently, and I learned this in grad school too when I was taking my doctorate in clinical psychology. They found a remarkable thing amongst families that live long, healthy, meaningful, purpose-driven lives. And you know this already. It's like preaching to the choir, because you do such a great job with your podcast, inspiring people. They found that those of us who have purpose and meaning, those of us who really know what their life's mission is all about, those of us who come together to celebrate and to break bread, and the family tradition. This is why we have the blue zones from around the world. And I looked at that, and I watched the videos, and I've looked at the documentaries, and the common denominator, I don't know if you've seen those, Laurie, or not.
I have.
The common denominator, as you know, was family.
Yes.
Coming together as family, no judgment. The scripture says, judge thee lest thee be not judged. We as Americans, I'm Irish, of course, but as an American, as an Irish citizen living in this great country called America, I'm looking out at the beautiful hills of Malibu here, and I see beautiful church down the street from me, in which I go to, and it's just amazing. And I see all these beautiful houses, and I see the scenery, and I see my dogs, and I see my family, and I see what God has given me. We have to stop this rhetoric of judging each other. We have to stop this rhetoric of wanting more. We have it all already. If you have your health, and you can breathe, and you can walk, and you can move, you can contribute. And so those of us who contribute the most in the world and have much more purpose and meaning in life, and that's the factor right there, purpose and meaning and family and connection rather than disconnect, then we can live a really remarkable, and that's part of the blue zone philosophy. They do live a remarkably long life. And if we can find that, boy, we can find purpose. And this weekend, this service at the church this past weekend was all about compassion for each other. That's the word of the day. Compassion and love and understanding and non-judgment and giving and giving and giving. I taught my stepdaughter the other night. I said, one of the things that may be missing, I think, from your life and that of your partner, I said, it may be that you're not being of service to other people as much as you could, because you're still young and you're learning. And I said, more service to not only to your family, but also to your friends and also to your community. And when you do that, then you can find true happiness. And that's where I get my happiness from, is giving back to others, particularly our family, our friends, the community, and indeed our homeless brothers and sisters on the street.
Right. And then it's better to give than to receive, right? And then
you got that right.
But the Lord still blesses us back when we give. I mean, we can't outgive God. So there's this constant cycle going on. He's like, just give, and then he gives back to us. And then we've got this joy that's just overflowing. So I love your perspective on life. It's fantastic.
It's every city that I go to, Laurie, I don't know, maybe it's the smile I have on my face or whatever, but I have people just coming up to me, gravitating towards me, those that are struggling. Mostly those that are struggling, they see something in us. I don't know what it is. It doesn't matter. I was in Austin, Texas, and people just come up to me and, hey, do you have $1 or so? And the only thing I won't buy them is cigarettes or alcohol. I'll buy them everything else. I'll give them a
Yep.
shirt. I'll give
Yep.
them a jacket. I'll buy you shoes or socks. I'll buy you an apple or a juice, but I will not buy you cigarettes or alcohol. And so I find them coming to me. I don't know what that is. And I'm sure you find that too,
Yeah.
that people gravitate because they feel safe in the comfort. And I drive my Tesla everywhere I go. And so I get a chance to pray and really, really get to know God really, really
Uh-huh.
powerfully. And I get to know myself and I get to pray for my friends and then set my intentions. And it's remarkable. I was reading about Joseph in the Bible the other day. There was a documentary on television. Actually, I was watching it in Austin, and it said that when he prayed, he levitated off the ground because of the intentions that he had and also the goodness that he had in his heart. He would levitate 30, 40 feet above the altar, which is just remarkable. And I thought,
Yeah.
wow, that's interesting. And what he did was he fasted every Thursday and Sunday, no meat of any kind. He fasted. So the evolution of his consciousness, his being, his light was actually being there for others. And I had the opportunity to meet some sisters from Mother Teresa's order several years ago before I wrote that book, Heart of a Servant, which I give all
Uh-huh.
the money to the ministry. And I had met them at the train station in Los Angeles. And I introduced myself and I told them I was writing a book. And they said, we'd love to pray with you and give you some medals and all that stuff. And I thought that was wonderful. So when they prayed with me, and this is really important, when you really pray, you can feel it. But you got to pray when there's silence and when there's peace, peace in your heart, a peace for others, and in a peaceful place. And so I don't pray when there's noise and cars and trains and planes and things like that flying around because I can't concentrate and can't focus. So you want to have that connection with spirit, with God, whatever that looks like to you. So when they held my hands, and I'm a big 6'2" leprechaun, you know that we've met too,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
And so when they prayed with me, Laurie, the whole weight of my body completely went away. I was lifeless, not lifeless. I was light and vibrant and energetic. And I felt like they could push me up and down, literally, with holding my hands with the
Wow.
prayer. So I could feel their spirit coming through me.
Right.
And then I realized, oh my goodness, I need to pray more because the more I pray, and I have my rosary on right here, the more
Uh-huh.
I pray, the more goodness comes to me. It just comes in so many different ways. And then the challenges that we're faced with is, are we receptive and do we feel that we deserve these gifts that God provides for us? And that's one of the challenges that most people I find that receive
Mhm.
some form of success, they start to sabotage their success. And if they would stop sabotaging their success and just receive it and say, thank you, God, thank you so much for this gift, then they can really make dramatic changes, not only in their own life, their community, and in their family, but more importantly, in themselves. But the only way to get there is to pray. For sure, it's very powerful.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you just hit on a really key point. And I've struggled with this in my life, is the receiving piece of it. Like, I'm not worthy to receive it. You're always taught, don't let anybody outgive you. You have to be the one that's kind of on top with the giving, and so you don't want to receive things. And so unwinding that, we get so independent, we get so like, I can do it on my own and I don't need anybody else. And so we get that way with God. And then it inhibits our ability to receive from him, because he wants to bless us. He's a good father, you know, he,
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that
right?
the good father? Well, I'm blessed. I have my dad, and of course, I had our Father in heaven as well. And it's amazing, Laurie. I will tell you as a friend, and I love my faith, and I love showing my faith. I could not have made it in America had my parents not instilled, or use the word installed, in me a love of God as a young man.
Right.
My mother
Yeah.
prayed continuously. And one thing I notice now that I didn't notice back then, but I was aware of it, my mother was the most content person I've ever met in my entire life. She would just sit there and say the rosary over and over and over and over. And I never stopped to think, wow, she's really mindful. She's really Zen.
Right.
She's the Zen master. And I thought, wow, she's saying the rosary decades and decades, decades of the rosary over and over continuously. I don't know, 100, 200 times, 200 times she would say the rosary. She would say
Wow.
the rosary continuously, but pray 100 decades of the rosary, maybe more, maybe less, on a continuous basis. Sometimes she would pray for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours at a time, and go to church in the morning and then go to church sometimes in the evening, sometimes twice a day, sometimes more if she could fit it in. And she had this love affair with our Father. And I thought, wow, what a magnificent thing. What a legacy to leave me, her son, family of 11. What a beautiful thing. My father was the same. So she installed in all of us that prayer was really important. My sisters all said the rosary. We're all very connected. And that's one of the, that's not to say that we don't have our issues or problems, though I live here now, not back home in Ireland. Um, I get such peace and solace when I do this. Like as I said, I drove to Austin. It was a 21-hour drive, stop to start along the way, charged my car, said hello to people, things of that nature. But the prayer, I didn't even, when I got out of my car, when I arrived in Austin, I felt as if I wasn't driving at all. I was what's the word I want to use? I was very light in my step and in my consciousness and in my being. In fact, I drove to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, a year or so before that. That's a 40-hour drive, and it seems like eternity for most people. But for me, I knew that I was going to have tremendous comfort in praying, because that's why I wanted to do it in the first place. I wanted to pray and give back to God, because I knew that he's just going to rain down his blessings upon me, which he does every single day. And I can't wait to get in my car and pray. So you don't have to wait to go to the church. I do it at my home. I do it in my car. I'll do it wherever I go. So find ways to pray every single day and watch what starts to happen and transform in your life.
Yeah, it's amazing. Prayer changes everything, absolutely everything. Yeah, you have to have a relationship.
For sure. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I love the fact you said your mom had a love affair with our Heavenly Father. I mean, what better picture than that?
Well, I thank her for that every single day. And my dad, and she would always say, you're better off if you go to church every single day. I said, Mom, we went twice today already. We went this morning and we're going again at 6:00. She would go hours and hours and hours and hours and pray. And it is such a beautiful thing that's still evident in our country, meaning here in America, very evident, of course, in Ireland, my native Ireland. So it's a beautiful thing. I don't see it in a lot of the youth, and I wish I would see it more, but that all happens with the parents. And I think one of the reasons why we have so much imbalance in relationships, domestic disputes and violence, and egotistical driven, volatile wars that cause so much pain and suffering to families and children, the displacement of families, bombing cities, destroying cities, and then to build the cities up, and all this control. And at the end of the day, what does it give us? What is your heart saying? What is the military saying? What are the bombs saying? What are the shootings? What are the killings? What does that reflect on you as a human being? Because we certainly didn't come into the world learning those things. These acts of aggression to try and control another person, that has to stop. And we have no other choice. We must return to prayer. And until we return to prayer, we will never have peace in the world. That's just my humble opinion.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you at all. It's we have to be in relationship with our Heavenly Father in order to be grounded, in order to be love, in order to receive love, to give love, to know how to care for people and everything else. So I agree.
Absolutely. And I'm not here to preach to people. I'm not here to bend someone's arm. Whatever your faith is, I'm cool with it, as long as it's a peaceful way of living. I think, there's a book came out one time called The Peaceful Warrior. And if we find peace in ourselves, because when you find peace in yourself, then the rest of the world starts to resonate with you, and you can affect dramatic change. The late Dr. Martin Luther King says, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step.
Right.
And if you do that, and if you don't know how to pray, ask someone who knows how to pray to show you how to pray and to say the rosary. I taught my stepson how to say the rosary. He asked me, he wanted to know that. And I thought, wow, that's really beautiful that he wanted to do that. He's such a fine young man, and he had his challenges, as all young millennials do growing up. I certainly had my challenges when I was growing up in my native Ireland as well. And a lot of the times we would rebel against saying the rosary every single night for an hour and 15 minutes. And being on your knees. But boy, oh boy, was that the most beautiful experience I could ever imagine. I wish I could do it all over again, because now I get to do it, and I get to do it with friends and people who really care and want to make changes. And so just finding peace. And as I said, the service this weekend at the church was all about love and compassion, understanding and forgiveness. And if we could just forgive ourselves for the mistakes that we made, forgive ourselves for not stepping up and working on becoming a better human being, then God will forgive you no matter what you do, as long as you don't harm or hurt anybody or maim someone. There's a lot of bliss and a lot of joy and just simply moving forward in the direction of a common goal and objective, and that is to love unconditionally.
Yep. Yep. I agree. Very good. And so when you do that, right? And then the second component would be, as we get to your greens, the second component would be to how to live a healthy life, physically,
Yeah.
right? And so I want you to share, your greens and some of your other products with the listeners and why you created them, because I think that's so important, your view of the body and how they nourish us.
Thank you for that, Laurie. I so appreciate you and your family. I was a sickly child in my native Ireland, never hungry, but very sickly. I was at the doctor on a continuous basis. And again, whatever you are seeking is also seeking you. The law of attraction says we attract into our lives the people and circumstances that dominate harmonize with our dominant thoughts. And I thought there's got to be a better way. So I started seeking. And when you start to seek, you will find good, bad, and different. And so I found plant-based medicine to be very powerful for me personally. It's not for everybody, but it certainly was for me. The pH scale of the human body goes from 0 to 14. 7.0 is neutral. Anything above that is alkaline. Anything below that is acid. And that's why we lose each other. Are we still there?
Oh, we're still here. You can just cut out for a second.
I just cut it for a second. Hopefully it'll bring me back, huh?
Yep.
And let me see. Can you see me, Laurie?
Yep, I can see you. You're good.
You can see me. Okay, I can't see myself. If you can see me, that's great.
I can see you and I can hear you.
Okay, great. And so I was looking and seeking the answers to some of life's pressing problems, particularly as it related to my own personal health and that of my family. And I thought, wow, someone introduced me to green foods. I had no clue what they were. And then he said, well, green foods are the highest on the DNA chain, and green foods are loaded with chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is the blood of plants with almost an identical molecular structure as hemoglobin, which is the blood of human beings. And I thought, wow, that's pretty remarkable. I didn't know that. And so I started to study these green foods. I started to take these green foods. I started to look at longevity from around the world, particularly the Hunzas, the Vilcaba Indians, the Azerbaijanis, the Titicacans. These are some of the longest lived people in the world. Now, Laura, they weren't on ding dongs or donuts or big gulps or French fries or soda pop or pizza, Pepsi or Prozac, because that wasn't available to them. So they lived on the land and they were consuming plant-based, rich, chlorophyll, glorified, magnificent foods from Mother Earth, because the further away we get from the land, the sicker we become. And the closer we stay to the land, the healthier we become. And these green foods are harnessed from the energy of the sunshine. So when sunshine hits the plants, they actually turn them green, creating what's called photosynthesis or rich chlorophyll. Mm-hmm. And this chlorophyll deodorizes and cleanses and detoxifies the body and rids the body of the excess waste matter, because the average person walking around carries about 30 to 40 pounds of excess waste matter in their body, and food transmit time. It's hard to believe that, isn't it? And food transmit time on a typical Western diet is about 30 to 40 hours. That's why we're so overweight. That's why diabetes has skyrocketed. It's gone up a whopping 600% in the United States. That's why cancer rates are so high. This is why we're really sick. So when we're out of favor with our maker, with God, with our Father, and we're not taking care of ourselves, and when we have imbalance or domestic disputes or arguments and a family with disharmony, a family that's full of love for our Heavenly Father doesn't have those issues. There are always problems, of course, financial problems, physical problems, emotional problems, psychological problems, health issues. That always happens in family. But when we fill our house and fill our body full of love and the goodness of our Heavenly Father, particularly these live whole foods, and then we fill our bodies spiritually and mentally and emotionally, you have harmony. You have less dysbiosis or imbalance, you have more homeostasis, and as a result, health tends to really increase dramatically. So I scoured the world looking for the best superfoods I could find. I talked to some of the leading researchers in the world, and that's why I wrote all those books on superfoods and why superfoods are really important. When I talked to some of the researchers and read from other research from around the world, we all concluded in our research and in our investigation and indeed in our observation that the further away we get from the land, no doubt the sicker we become. The closer we stay to the land, the healthier we become. If we consume more plant-based, green-rich superfoods that oxygenate the blood, remember that bacteria and viruses cannot survive in an oxygen-rich environment. quote
Right.
unquote. The Nobel Prize was for that way back in 1939, 1941, proving that Otto von Warburg and Johanna von Budwig proved that. So these green foods are the only foods in the world that provide oxygen to the body, unless you get oxygen from another source or from a tank. And when they take you to the hospital. So the more oxygen we take into our body, the less oxidative stress, the more cleansing, the more detoxification, the leaner and fitter and healthier we become. And as a result, we are cognitively more acute and more aware. Our hair, our skin, and our nails thrive in this type of environment as it steps in Prozac.
Okay, there you are. Yeah, that's amazing. So you cut out there on the last. What were you saying about Prozac?
You know, we write more prescriptions in America than the entire world combined. We consume more prescription medication in America than anywhere else on the planet. And in the last 3 years that we've been locked down due to what I call the pandemic, suicide rates are the highest amongst young adults in the last 40, 50 years. For me, is a tragedy. That is a huge tragedy. And the reason for that, obviously, is because the kids don't know how to cope. Parents don't know how to cope. Grandparents don't know how to cope. And of course, the best thing you can do is to turn off the television, because there's a lot of negative programming on different news networks, commercials, advertisements, social media. They're all programming you, get the shots, get these shots, get these shots, when they've been experimental in nature, unlicensed, and of course damaging to the heart muscle and damaging to the body, and wreaking havoc on our immune system and causing lots of clots, and untried and untrusted, and certainly not of God, for sure.
Right. No, I'm in complete agreement on that with you, for sure, for sure. And so one of the first steps, would be foundational, using, going back to these superfoods to overcome various health issues. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And superfoods are not everything. They're almost your complete, there's like God's food, because the average person doesn't get the right nutrients on a daily basis. Here's why, Laurie. As a farm boy growing up in Ireland, we over harvest. Well, we don't do it in Ireland so much, but we do it in this country. There's over farming on the same plot, or multiple crops have been grown on the same plot of land. And as a result, if you don't add back the nitrogen, the phosphorus, and the potassium, and you don't give it the vital minerals and nutrients that is needed in order to generate a harvest or a great crop, then we're harvesting crops that are deficient in vital nutrients. So if it's not in the soil, it's not in the food. And if it's not in the food, then it's not in the body. And consequently, as a result, this is why we're deficient in a lot of vital nutrients, particularly vitamin D and various other nutrients. Even though we can get vitamin D from the sun, it's good also to supplement. So our soil has been eroded due to poor crop rotation and multiple crops being grown on a continuous basis. That's a huge issue. This is why these green foods have 90 minerals, 22 amino acids, and 65% protein, which is found in the spirulina. We could literally survive on this if we had nothing else to eat. And the stats are remarkable. When you look at cultures from around the world, those that consume the most amount of plant-based nutrition live longer, have better health, are fitter, leaner, healthier, great hair, skin, and nails, have no diabetes and no cardiovascular disease because they don't smoke. We are heavily industrialized here, of course, in the United States, but you wouldn't think that by the way Big Pharma treats us. We have clean drinking water. Our sanitation is pretty good, though we rank about 50th in the world, WHO, according to the WHO, when it comes to overall good health. We should be right up there at #1 because we have such a powerful country, the best Navy, best Army, I mean, the best everything in this country. But yet there are other countries where, for example, in Africa, various parts of it, the people are really, really healthy, and they live on sugar beet and some other rye and millet and things of that, wheat and things of that nature. They're very lean, they're very fit, they're very robust, they're very healthy and incredibly strong, and walk and run for miles and hunt and raise a family with just natural substances derived from Mother Earth and that which they cultivate on the small plot of land, those that can afford a small plot of land. So there's a lot to be said, but then of course, not everybody would want to live there, especially if you live in the United States where we have it all. We got
Right, right.
burgers, we got fries, we got soda pops, we got big gulps, we've got ding dongs, we got all those things, but we don't exercise enough. We don't pray enough. We don't get back to the basics of the food group. The faster we do that, the faster we get healthy. Diabetes will drop dramatically. This is the first generation, Laurie, where children will die before their parents. That was a cover of Time magazine several years ago. That's really sad when our children are fatter than us and will die before their parents. That's shocking. And now, of course, with fentanyl and all the drugs that are being released and the inability, a young child does not, or a young millennial does not have the ability to cope. Hence the reason why I mentioned momentarily why suicide has skyrocketed. The highest it's been in 40 plus years in the United States. For me, that's bad. That's really bad. That means that it tells me something is terribly wrong in the family cycle.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I do what I do, right? And why you do what you
Absolutely.
do, because you make a profound change in one family member at least, and then you can make a profound change. It's like a domino effect. And so I work mainly with women, and so changing their foundation with food, will then change the foundation of food with family. And if you change the foundation of food, you can change their foundation of they're open to being, their faith can be changed and their outlook on life and, all those type of things. So there's always this cascading effect because it's never about just superfoods or never about, proteins or fats or whatever it might be. There's so much more to all of this. And I think your product speaks to that because you're not just offering, radiant greens, you're offering so much more, which is one of the reasons why I admire your work so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. And also, from a socioeconomic standpoint in this country right now, we have less money than ever before in our pocket. We have millions of people out of work here in Southern California. We have been locked down for 3 years. Our coping mechanism, as I mentioned earlier, is waned dramatically. There is a difficulty in that toolbox. We just don't know what to do. And so, if in doubt, and you can't afford some of these superfoods and drinks and cacao drinks that you get at the health food stores, you can always eat fresh fruits and vegetables. You can always eat an
Right.
apple or an orange or a peach or a pear or blueberries or some bananas. You can always find a way to eat really, really healthy. I grew up on meat and potatoes and I was always sick. Not that that's bad for you. I was just always at the doctor. I was a sickly child. I was a weakling. I mean, literally weak, big guy, weak, but sick and at the doctor and on copious amounts of medication. In fact, I was on so many meds as a young man. I thought the boogeyman was coming after me. And I
Oh,
remember running out of our farmhouse and running through the forestry at the back of our house. And I was in an unconscious state from the nightmare that I was in because the boogeyman was coming after me. I was a young 15, 16-year-old boy. And I eventually fell into some water in the hillside at the back of our house. Remember, this is a hillside that's covered with forest trees. And I fell into some water and I woke up and took me out of that nightmare. And then I had to walk back in a conscious state. How far I can't remember, but it was a nightmare. I can remember it like it is right now. And my late mother spent 2 days taking thorns out of my legs and out of my feet. That's how bad it was. Because you don't feel it when you're in a nightmarish condition, which I was from the side effects of taking the medication. I think that was the turning point. I believe, and I know that was the turning point for me that I knew this medication was bad. And when I told my mom the side effects of this medication, that I was hallucinating, I have these terrible nightmares, she says, I don't want you to have that anymore, because she knew that it was dangerous, because here I am running through a forestry in the middle of the night, a young man, and having no fear whatsoever, and then falling into some of the water from in the forestry. And thankfully I did fall into some of that water, so my feet stepped in it and I woke up and I was able to come back to the house and survive that. But it was a turning point in my life for sure, towards natural, non-toxic, affordable, effective, natural remedies that do no harm.
yep, that is the key. Do no harm, right?
Right.
And just, I always tell my clients, your body's designed to heal. You were created to heal. So if you remove the interference, give the body what it needs, then the body has the ability to heal itself, right?
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Every sickness, this is not just me saying this. The Nobel Prize was won for this too by Linus, the great, wonderful Dr. Linus Pauling. He said that every sickness and every ailment can be traced to a vitamin mineral deficiency. If you don't have those minerals, that's why that Spark of Life product that you love is so critically important for the ejection fraction of the heart muscle. We simply are eating food that has little or no minerals, no nourishment. In fact, there's more fiber in the box than there is in the product. We have
That's
fast food
not good.
restaurants. Yeah, very bad. We have over 2,000 plus restaurants opening every year in the United States. It's incredible. Diabetes and diabesity and clinical obesity has skyrocketed in this country, and it's a real issue. We're not moving, not exercising like we used to and should. We're consuming all the wrong foods, processed foods, genetically modified foods with a lot of fat, a lot of saturated fat, significant amount of sugar. In fact, the average person in America consumes over 200 pounds of sugar per person every single
Every
year.
year.
For
And
me,
you and
that
I
is
aren't consuming it, so somebody has to
monstrous.
be consuming ours.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't do it because obviously
No.
that's not how I live. I want longevity. I have so much to contribute to the world. You do as well. If you're struggling, people need to reach out to you, Laura. Reach out to you and watch this podcast and get
Yeah.
answers, because whatever you're seeking is also seeking you.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. This is such a great message, Dr. Tony. What else? What are your final thoughts you'd like to leave my audience with? Dr. Tony, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I think we just cut out for a moment
We
there.
did, yeah. I said, what are your final thoughts you want to leave my audience with? Because we could talk all day, but
Yes, for sure. I'm thankful and grateful for this opportunity. Thank you so much. My website is always available to you. You can always email me, Laura. You'll be happy to give my email out to people.
okay.
If you have a question, just send me an email. I'm happy to answer it for you. I think you should check out some of the superfoods. Go to the website, if I may give it out. It's okay. I'll give it out, Laurie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You cut out again.
We're losing
Sorry.
each other.
Yes.
Yeah, www.radiantgreens, Radiant Greens. If you can't sleep at night, try the Peaceful Sleep. If you have inflammation, try the organic turmeric. If you have joint problems, try the joint formula, and give it a shot. And of course, know that you are a worthwhile human being. Know that you are doing the best you can under the circumstances. Know that people really care about you. Know that you are loved. There's so many people that I meet that are alone, that are sad, have no family. I talked to a young girl the other day. She's a strong Christian. Doesn't You tell me you're a Christian, but you don't speak to your parents? And I thought, wow, that's interesting. Why don't you find a way? Whatever it takes, speak to your parents. And move on to the next life, then you're going to have pain and discomfort and regret. And I found that very interesting. So we must find a way to let, the late Wayne Dyer said, EGO stands for edging God out. We can't edge God out. When we let God in, the ego goes down, and it's the ego that's driving all this conflict around the world. There's nothing more than that. It's total ego that's driving the country. And when I hear my prime minister say, we're going to wipe this country off the face of the earth, that's ego driven. That's like, I want to get back at you so badly for what you did. We got to find peace. And the only way we can do that is to pray. I'm thankful and grateful. Thank you so much, Laurie.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and I admire your work, and I thank you for being on the podcast, and thank you to all of our listeners for joining us today. I want you to make sure that you like, subscribe, and share this with all of your family and friends, anybody you feel like who needs to hear this, and make sure you tune into the next episode, and I hope that you have a very blessed and beautiful day. Thank you.